The Concordat, as it's been published a couple of hours ago. So we'll just go through some of the paragraphs and we'll get some analysis from Sir Peter. Essentially, the Concordat sets out the conditions for suspending or terminating the treaty. It gives Gibraltar the levers to do that. The first part is the agreement. It says the implementation of the agreement will fully respect the constitutional arrangements in place in respect of Gibraltar, and in particular, the Gibraltar Constitution order. So that's the first thing, Sir Peter. Happy with that?
It's very important. First of all, can I just say, if you will permit me, that there is an overarching point to be made here, and that is to say that this Concordat, like all such agreements, political agreements between the United Kingdom government and other British territorial governments, have to be done in the context of a very complex UK constitutional position. The United Kingdom government cannot sell out the sovereignty of Britain's own parliament. It cannot subject itself, that is responsible for the international affairs of Gibraltar and all the overseas territories. It cannot agree to forgo that in favour of the territories. And that this agreement, these concordats, are a very careful juxtaposition of competing interests and demands, legal, political, that seeks to reconcile these very difficult things. How does the United Kingdom give a place like Gibraltar the comfort that we rightly demanded for this, whilst at the same time staying within the bounds of what is constitutionally possible for it as a UK government to do? And so this is not just starting with a blank piece of paper and the United Kingdom scribbling on it whatever it wants or whatever we want, and it's got to be understood in that concept. The first point that you've mentioned is a very important one, because in the bad old days, if the UK signed an international treaty, it would take the view that everything in it is external affairs, because it was the UK's responsibility, and in a sense, everything that went into a national treaty emptied the constitution of our constitution of our self-governing powers. The recognition in this Concordat by the UK government that everything that is a defined domestic, everything that is the responsibility of Gibraltar ministers in this agreement remains the responsibility of the Gibraltar government and Gibraltar ministers, notwithstanding that it's affected by an international treaty between the UK and the EU, is very important, because it means that there is no emptying out of our constitution. There is no cession of our very hard-earned and fought-for powers of self-government accumulated over decades. So I attach a great importance to that.
The Concordat sets out areas that Gibraltar is responsible for under the treaty, such as border checks, surveillance, law enforcement, cooperation.
Today our responsibility.
Exactly, everything that's in the treaty, and they retain international responsibility for compliance and control over defence and foreign affairs. Now, there is a sentence, there is a phrase here that has raised some concern, certainly from the GSD, but it says, the UK will, other than in the most exceptional circumstances, seek prior agreement of the government of Gibraltar before taking any significant actions under the agreement in areas of the Gibraltar government's responsibilities under the Constitution. Now, if I can just, before I get you to comment on that, just mention that Stephen Doughty, the Europe Minister, has written to Fabian Picardo saying that there's been some discussion on that phrase, that the United Kingdom government will not, other than in the most exceptional circumstances, do certain things contrary to the wishes of Gibraltar. And this is what he says. He says, the phrase reflects the shared understanding that in relation to the exercise of powers within the treaty, the United Kingdom government would follow the democratically expressed wishes of Gibraltar and would not do or omit to do anything contrary to those wishes in all but truly exceptional circumstances. So he sets out an extremely high threshold, he says it is, which is consistent with the principle that there should be nothing about Gibraltar without Gibraltar. And then he adds, I consider it would only be in the most extreme cases, such as where there was grave impact on the United Kingdom's essential interests, that we would take such action. Quite frankly, I consider it inconceivable that such circumstances would ever arise. And he hopes that that gives Gibraltar the reassurances that they seek. Now, what can I ask, what do you make of that paragraph?
Well, this is an example of the what I was saying before, that the UK is itself walking a tightrope act. The UK cannot say, I will never do anything that the Gibraltar doesn't want in relation to a treaty which is the UK's international responsibility. So they've come up with this phrase, except in the most extreme circumstance. And later on in that letter, Stephen Doughty explains that he thinks that this is very improbable ever to happen, and it would have to be some overriding interest of the United Kingdom, which is of excruciating, whatever adjective is used, importance to the United Kingdom. Look, but the point is nevertheless well made. When I saw the text of the Concordat a couple of days ago, I was not entirely satisfied with it myself, and I made some representations which have materialized in the form of this letter. The House, I called to you on your Newswatch and program and Viewpoint program several months ago when the treaty text was published. I said, this is fine, I support the treaty, but the UK can't leave Gibraltar locked in. We have to have the right to get out if this goes terribly badly, doesn't work as we all expect, turns out to be a political and economic trap for us. We cannot be at the whim of whether the UK government, and therefore we must have our hand on the trigger, meaning that the UK has to allow us out if we want to get out. But the original text did not do that, and it's fine. Doughty has corrected that, has clarified that in the letter, where he says, and this is where the words or omit to come in, where he says and he explains that the phrases that you have read, and I won't take up more of your airtime by repeating, the ones that you just read before, mean precisely that. That it's not just that the UK government will not itself, because the original language gave us the power of veto. In other words, they would not pull out if we did not agree to the UK pulling out. But that's not the same as giving us the ability to come out if we want to come out. The letter now makes clear that the phrases that you have read out have got to be understood as meaning precisely
But the thing is, we don't know what exceptional circumstances means. And what it means to this government might not be the same as what it means to another government.
Well, look, you've got to understand how these things operate. The preamble to our constitution, on which we've all depended, is not illegal. These are not legal commitments. These are political commitments. The UK government has never failed to live up to a political commitment given by a government of the day to the people of Gibraltar. That is what the preamble is. If you look further on in the letter, if you've got a copy of it, I would look at it for you just to read it out to you. There is a definition of what is an exceptional circumstance, which is not look, it's as far as you're going to get from a UK government, and I am satisfied with it in the sense that I acknowledge that it is difficult to expect the UK government to do more than that. They have gone to the extreme of saying it would have to be some extreme UK national interest, and I really don't think, in the context of the UK legal constitutional constraints that I started with, I think that is the best that we can hope to achieve.
Okay.
If we had been drafting a piece of paper in blank with the UK government, we would have added things to it. But given that the UK had to sign it, I am content with it.
So Peter, we did discuss the Concordat briefly earlier, but just on the back of the GST's criticism, what's your view on it?
Well, I think some of that comment is absolutely correct. As I said myself in my first intervention, the actual text of the Concordat actually does fall short, because it gives us a veto. It doesn't oblige the UK to act spontaneously when we want them to do something. It gave us a veto for what they might want to do, but it didn't require them to do what we wanted them to do. I think that has been corrected sufficiently in this letter, where they have they've explained what this word exceptional circumstances mean, and Stephen Doughty, on behalf of the British government, has said it would only be in the most extreme cases, such as where there was grave impact on the United Kingdom's essential interests, that we would take such action. Quite frankly, I consider it inconceivable that such circumstances would ever arise. So I think that this goes a long way, but if But for this clarification and other clarifications and explanations in this letter, I think Keith Asopardi's point is right. The Concordat, as originally produced and signed, does fall short of what the Parliament called for, which was Gibraltar finger on the trigger if we wanted to get out. This letter, but look, if a future GST government, and I hope that there will be one next, is able to improve on the letter by transferring some of what is in this letter into an amended Concordat, which the UK government can do at any time. The Concordat is entirely between the UK and Gibraltar, nothing to do with Europe, nothing to do with Spain. The UK government can improve on it at any time. Indeed, can do so before the treaty is ratified even, then we'd all be even better off than we are today. So I think the comment is politically reasonable, politically responsible. The GST is not saying it opposes this, it's saying it will seek to improve it, to bring it closer to what the letter says and closer to what the House resolution said, and I think that's a fair comment.
So Peter, we have to bring up the actual termination clause. You said that you've read the Concordat, haven't you? If we can just call up the termination clause and have a look at it and see what you think, whether it does its job. It says, consistently with the principle that the United Kingdom government has adhered to throughout the negotiations, nothing about Gibraltar without Gibraltar, and consistently with the principle of the double lock, the United Kingdom will exercise its powers on the termination of the agreement pursuant to Article 66 or Article 334 of the agreement, only following full consultation with the government of Gibraltar. In any event, the United Kingdom government will not, other than in the most exceptional circumstances, take the necessary steps with a view of terminating the agreement unless termination is supported by, and here's where it gets quite interesting, a motion carried by a majority of at least 3/4 of the total number of members of the Gibraltar Parliament, or a simple majority of the votes cast in a referendum of all persons entitled to vote in elections to the Gibraltar Parliament. What do you think about that, Sir Peter?
I think that's what we called for. It's fine if it's not limited to vetoing. In other words, provided that that does not mean that the UK will not itself trigger departure, trigger termination without Gibraltar's consent. It's got to be more than that. It's also got to mean that if Gibraltar asks for it by one of these two ways that you've just read out, the United Kingdom will do it. And the Concordat itself does not say that, but the letter makes clear that it needs to be read in that way. The language that is used in the Concordat, Stephen Doughty is saying in this letter, should be read, must be read, to mean precisely that. Not only will it be a veto for us, but if we ask for it, if we trigger it, rather than wanting to veto something that the UK has triggered, if we trigger a wish for that we Gibraltarians, we want to out of this, the UK will, except in the most exceptional circumstances, defined as I have just read to you, do that. This part has got to be read with what it says in the first page about the United Kingdom will do or omit to do. The United Kingdom will not do or omit to do anything that the people of Gibraltar ask for in a referendum, etc., etc. And that is key. I would not have supported the Concordat had it not were it not for the terms of this letter, and I made that clear.
And just to be clear, it is a political agreement. It's not legally binding, isn't it? So is it future-proof?
Look, it's as future-proof as the United Kingdom is trustworthy. The United Kingdom has always been trustworthy. It is as future-proof as the preamble to the Constitution, which is also not legally binding. The United Kingdom, our Constitution, is not legally binding in the sense that the United Kingdom could repeal it at any moment and take over through what's called direct rule. When you're an overseas territory and not an sovereign independent state in your own right, nothing is future-proof without the trust of the parties involved. One of the reasons why we want to stay with the UK and many others is that we trust their political system, we trust the calibration of their moral compass. When the UK government gives the people of Gibraltar solemn assurances of this or that, They have always honoured them in the past, and they will always honour them in the future. And if that turns out not to be the case, it makes no difference whether it's legal or not, because they could always tear up laws. The United Kingdom Parliament can never be bound by any past law that it has passed. This is what the sovereignty of Parliament means. No Parliament and no government of the United Kingdom can prevent a future government or a future Parliament of the United Kingdom doing whatever it wants. And that's what I tried to explain, sorry to slip into legalese, at the beginning of this interview, that all of this has got to be seen in the context of the UK government having to grapple with those constitutional realities in the UK.